for the Republic Party is leading in last week's municipal election. The party garnered 1,150 seats, raking in 75.3% of the votes in the elections that is the first to be organized since a constitutional reform that could allow President Faure Singbe to rule the country for life. There were 51 seats for the National Alliance for Change Party and 38 for the Union for Forces for Change Party. Voter turnout was low in last week's election, with most polling stations in the capital Lome empty. This followed the repression of popular protests against President Singbe at the end of June. Well, the results are not yet official, and political parties still have time to contest it until 5 days following the announcement of the results. Well, in Cameroon, a record number of 81 candidates have applied to run in the presidential elections set for October this year. Their applications were made to Cameroon's national body in charge of organizing elections by the deadline on Monday at midnight. So among the hopefuls are many second-time runners. After breaking away from supporting President Paul Biya earlier this year, Bello Buba Maigari is running in a presidential race for the second time in his political career. It's the same for Maurice Kamto and Cabral Libi, with both also changing political party affiliations for the elections. President Paul Biya is also seeking an 8th term in office. Well, the flood of applications, meanwhile, remains dominated by men. Out of the 81 total applications, only 7 female candidates have declared their intention to run in the presidential election. A U.S. court has given the Trump administration the green light to end temporary protections for immigrants from Cameroon and Afghanistan, despite legal challenges from immigration advocacy groups. The appellate court has ruled that the Trump administration can end a program that grants temporary deportation protections to more than 10,000 people from Afghanistan and Cameroon. Temporary Protected Status, or TPS, allows people to stay and work in the U.S. if their home countries are deemed unsafe due to natural disasters or war. Well, the government argued that the TPS program is intended to be temporary, and Cameroon and Afghanistan are now safe enough for people to return. Around 11,700 Afghans and 5,200 Cameroonians are enrolled in TPS, but roughly 3,600 of the Afghans and 200 of the Cameroonians have green cards, so they will not be affected. Or those who lose their TPS protections can apply for asylum or some other form of legal status, but otherwise they will be at risk of deportation back to their country. Well, across the continent and in the nation of Eswatini, fury has erupted over the arrival of foreign deportees from the United States after the Eswatini government confirmed that migrants described by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security spokesperson as depraved monsters had been sent to its prisons. Eswatini, formerly known as Swaziland, is governed by a monarchy who has absolute power. On Wednesday last week, officials said that 5 deportees from the U.S. were being held in isolated units in its jails, acknowledging widespread concern, but insisting that the deported men pose no threat to the country or its citizens. Well, the 5 men are being kept in solitary confinement, according to acting government spokesperson Tabile Mdluli, but she stopped short of disclosing the prisons they were held, citing security risks. Ms. Nduli did not also reveal how long the men would be in Eswatini, but says critical engagements between stakeholders are still ongoing. She had earlier stated that the deportation was the result of months of robust, high-level engagements between the U.S. and the Southern African nation. Well, critics of this move say it is unacceptable for Eswatini to be treated as what they called a dumping ground for people considered unfit to live in the U.S. Well, let's get more reactions on this story. Joining us now is our correspondent in South Africa, Innocent Samosa. Hello, Innocent. Good to see you.
Good evening to you, Layo, and our viewers at home. It's good to be alongside you.
Well, what's been the reaction, across Southern Africa to reports that the U.S., to this story that the U.S., has deported foreign nationals to Eswatini, a country they may not even be from?
Yeah, so this conversation has sparked a lot of debates. It, in fact, has made a lot of tongues wagging. Many civil society groups, political parties in the region saying that this is a, 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 a problem when it comes to the security in not only in Swaziland, but in the region as a whole. In fact, when we're talking about this issue during the day, Layo, I was talking to one of my friends who is in Swaziland. Of course, you're studying in South Africa. And I asked him to give me a picture of what is happening. And it does look like the government, there was no commitment from the government of Eswatini in terms of bringing the public into to its confidence to say that these people are actually coming. These inmates will be kept in Swaziland. In fact, they had to speak to the public simply because there was an outcry on social media. People were asking and people were scared about, these inmates. I mean, we're talking about people who raped children, people who, of course, committed murders and heinous crimes. I mean, President Trump's called them the monsters. So, and they're here in Eswatini. And he was talking about the fact that the security system and the justice system in Eswatini is such that is not strong enough to basically deal with this kind of people. And they wonder why the prime minister took a decision to basically, allow these people to come into the country. But of course, we know, colleague, that there's a group called Mighty Stakeholder Forum. This forum, of course, represent churches, represent civil society groups, and some political parties in Swaziland. They say that they're investigating. In fact, they want answers as to how much did the government get got in from the United States for bringing these inmates into the country. So they're saying that they're continuing with investigations. But of course, it's not only in Swaziland, also in South Africa. People have been worried to say that how could the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Swaziland allow these people to be kept in Swaziland, considering the size of the country, Layo.
Indeed, Eswatini is just a tiny country in that southern African region. Do we know the reason, behind why it was particularly chosen as the destination for these deportees? And you've also talked about, the backlash. How is the government responding to that?
Yeah, well, and going back to my friend, in fact, I asked him to send me a video just so he can tell us the story from the ground, and you would know that in Swaziland, there are issues around freedom of speech. So therefore, also back then there were issues around journalists being harassed. So he said that he's not comfortable to do that for us. But of course, we are told also, now you're going back to your question, that there has been a lot of back and forth and disagreements from the cabinet of the prime minister. Apparently, some members of parliament and his cabinet were not aware that this is actually taking place. In fact, we're told that there's been this disagreement saying that why did the prime minister allow this? It does seem as though there's selective people who the prime minister decided to work with in this process. So hence we find ourselves here where there are some people who do not know why these people are here. And by the way, Layo, it speaks to the issues around security, because you would recall that prior 1994, there were a lot of people from West East Africa coming into the Southern Africa region, going into the Swaziland, going into Lesotho. But we've seen those people leaving those countries throughout the years because these are small economies. So they are moving into South Africa because this is a big economy. So many South Africans have been saying that, in fact, when you come from Swaziland, you must produce a visa because they don't trust that Swaziland will be able to keep those people. Now, going back to your intro as well, as you rightly alluded to, we don't know how long those people will be kept there for. So that's another big question. Yeah, so it does seem as though a lot of Swaziland people in South Africa and back in Swaziland, they are quite concerned about this issue and they want answers. But the challenge is that there's issues of freedom of speech in Swaziland, so people cannot voice their concerns, willingly out on social media on the public. Those who are who have the liberty of doing that, they are living in South Africa or in Zimbabwe or in Botswana. But over and above, the bottom line here is that many people are concerned in the region with regards to these 5 inmates, colleague.
And from South Africa's vantage point, is there also, perhaps the concern about the human rights implications of these deportations, especially within the broader regional migration crisis?
Yeah, indeed. It calls for a concern, and we have not heard from the presidency. They have not said a word. But I guess because it's a diplomatic issue, they would want to engage with the government of Eswatini, not basically on social media, because this is an issue that, of course, it does involve South Africa one way or the other. But also they are asking themselves, why? The big question is why and how much. Some members of parliament are saying that they will then ask them, the minister of finance in parliament, as to how much did he got from the United States and what are they going to do with that money. And by the way, Elayo, just a few weeks ago, there was a child who got missing, and the community, there was protest everywhere in Swaziland. That speaks to the fact that now you're bringing people who have these backgrounds, and a country like America could not keep these people. They're saying that they're unable to keep these people and they're bringing them to Swaziland. There are countries, they don't want them, and you're bringing them to Swaziland, a country of that size. I think there's really a lot that we are missing here, and I guess the community members in Swaziland, when they say they want answers, it does make sense because there's no way that these people can come into the country without money exchange. And they're saying that, and it's not me, this is the sentiment on the ground. And perhaps it does seem as though the figure that they got from America was difficult for them to say no. Hence,
Right.
we find ourselves here, Layo.
Thank you so much, Innocent Samosa, our correspondent in Johannesburg, South Africa.
All right. Thank you, colleague.
All university students in war-ravaged Sudan have resumed classes following a 2-year suspension due to the ongoing fighting in the country. At the Malian University, Rector Al-Hadi Adam, with other officials, cut a ceremonial ribbon alongside military officials, even as school activities pick up gradually. All students are back on campus, walking through the corridors and even sitting for exams in lecture halls. Ahead of reopening, the university administration implemented precautionary measures, including security checks to ensure no weapons or explosives are present on campus. Technical teams were also deployed to clear rubble and debris from the premises. The local media reports that Malian University was hosting entrance exams at its Khartoum campus for the first time in 2 years, with 987 students sitting the tests. Back in June, Sudan's military-appointed Prime Minister Kamel Idris issued a decree ordering the reopening of universities in Khartoum and instructing authorities to assess the damage inflicted on academic institutions. Eastern Libyan authorities have sent hundreds of Sudanese back to the war-torn country in a crackdown on migrants seeking to flee conflict and poverty for Europe. by way of the Mediterranean nation. According to the Directorate for Combating Illegal Migration in Eastern Libya, 700 Sudanese who were detained recently in central and southeastern Libya have been deported by land to Sudan. The deportation is part of an ongoing crackdown campaign on migrant trafficking in eastern Libya, which is controlled by forces of powerful military commander Khalifa Haftar. Last week, the Coast Guard in eastern Libya said it had intercepted a boat carrying 80 Europe-bound migrants off the eastern city of Tobruk. The campaign includes raids on trafficking hubs across eastern and southern Libya. A raid earlier this month freed 104 Sudanese migrants, including women and children, who had been held in a trafficking warehouse in the town of Abjabiya, east of the capital Tripoli. Well, hundreds of people have gathered at Cairo's central train station to start their journey back home to the war-torn country of Sudan. The travel is part of a campaign by the Egyptian government providing free train rides back to Khartoum, and the capital, which had been recently recaptured by Sudanese armed forces from the rival paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, RSF. Well, Sudan has experienced a civil war since April 2023. The battle for power between the military and the RSF has caused one of the worst humanitarian crises in the world. Over 40,000 people have been killed, and the war has caused one of the world's largest displacement crises. Well, people have already started returning back to the capital, even as it slowly rebuilds the city since its recapture a couple of months ago. Egypt hosts the largest number of Sudanese refugees from the war, with over 1.5 million people fleeing across to its border. In the meantime, the UNHCR says over 11.6 million refugees risk losing aid access due to funding cuts. Approximately 1 in 3 refugees and other vulnerable individuals normally supported by the UN Refugee Agency are now expected to lose out from funding cuts. Out of UNHCR's $10.6 billion funding requirements this year, only 23% has been fulfilled so far, and this is according to Dominic Hyde, the UNHCR's director for external relations. The funding crisis stems from large foreign aid cuts by donor countries such as Sweden, France and Japan, compounded by slashed United States humanitarian assistance. A new UNHCR report notes that forced displacement is increasing worldwide and humanitarian aid is declining sharply.
We fear that up to 11.6 million refugees and people forced to flee are losing access to humanitarian assistance provided by HCR. And this means that 1/3 of the people that we usually assist will not be getting the services that we are usually able to provide. And behind these numbers lie families, lie lives that are hanging on a very, very thin balance. Families are seeing their support that they have relied on just vanish. If I just hone in on a few examples, I'd like to speak about South Sudan, where 75% of safe spaces for women and girls supported by UNHCR have closed, leaving up to 80,000 refugees, women and girls, including survivors of sexual violence, without access to medical care, psychosocial support, legal aid, material support, or income-generating activities. Without this support, they will simply not be able to move on with their lives, and it will take that much more time on their path to recovery, but even just that simple shelter where we're not able to support. We're being hit. These women-led organizations are being hit. Governments that are hosting refugees are being hit. I said it at the beginning, that's a deadly cocktail. That is not good news for the world.
Algeria's President Abdelmadjid Tebboune is offering to help negotiate between Bamako's military junta and rebel forces in the north. However, he says he would not accept mercenary forces stationed on the 1,400-kilometer border the two countries share. Speaking to the National Press Corps, President Tribune says he is ready to help mediate between Malian authorities and rebel forces, but only if Mali makes an official request for intervention. The regime in Bamako has been battling the CMA coalition of Tuareg independents and Arab nationalists since 2023. Last year, Mali's military junta pulled out of an Algerian negotiated peace deal after the CMA clashed with government forces and Russian African Corps mercenaries, formerly known as Wagner. Bamako has accused Algiers, which has its own Tuareg population, of harboring terrorists who cross the border to launch attacks in Mali. In recent months, the two North African neighbors have swapped accusations of cross-border drone strikes. Or here in Nigeria, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Togo, has lamented the trade imbalances between Nigeria and Egypt with a call for increased partnership to unlock trade opportunities domestically and in both countries. The minister made the call during the Nigeria-Egypt Business Forum in Abuja. Our correspondent Kumbi Aboluwade reports.
The federal government is hosting the second edition of the Nigeria-Egypt Business Forum, a move to avail both countries the opportunity to dialogue and propel a lasting chamber of commerce for mutual economic advancement. Nigeria's Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Togo, was joined by his counterpart from Egypt, Mr. Badru Abdulatif, Governor Umar Namadi of Jigawa State, and the Minister of State for Finance. According to the Observatory of Economic Complexity, an online data visualization and distribution platform focused on economic activities, Nigeria's export to Egypt hit $12.2 million, while Egypt's export to Nigeria hit $199 million. These figures are described by both ministers as appalling, with a call on the need for the countries to leverage each other's expertise.
Given this vast, underutilized market and the current trade imbalance, Nigeria and Egypt must actively contribute to the D8 leaders' ambitious target of increasing intra-D8 trade to $500 billion by 2030.
We need more business based on win-win situation. You benefit and we benefit. We have a very strong historical relationship, but we need to translate this into actions, especially in business and in economic and investment relationship.
The Nigerian-Egypt Business Forum was formed after the D8 Forum, where the need to establish a joint chamber of commerce was highlighted. The consensus here is that there's a need to do more to improve trade relations.
Nigeria and Egypt have a long way to go, but until we begin, we haven't started. So as we engage in today's discussions, let us be bold, pragmatic, and focused. Let us go beyond ceremonial MOU signings and commit to implementable, bankable, and scalable projects.
The two countries are hoping that this forum will open doors to more concrete investment opportunities for mutual benefits. From Abuja, Kumbi Aboluwade, Channels Television News.
Well, the Confederation of African Football, CAF officials have visited the Kasarani and Nyayo stadiums in Kenya's capital city of Nairobi, and this is to evaluate the venue's preparedness to co-host the 2024 African Nations Championship, CHAN. CAF Secretary General Veron Mosengo Omba, accompanied by local organizing committee chairman Nicholas Mosenyo, and a group of officials inspected the stadiums. Mr. Mosengo Omba stated his satisfaction with what he has been seeing, confirming that the locations are ready for kickoff on the 2nd of August. The 2024 African Nations Championship had been postponed to August 2025, and this is due to the CAF decision in order to prepare the necessary infrastructure and facilities in the host countries of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda.
I'm really satisfied to what I have seen. And we are ready. You can see the quality of the pitch where we are is not good with your shoes because you can spoil the grass. The top grass is here. The changing room, everything is, we are ready. Of course, there's something to be fixed, like the chair to put there, to move from one place to another, but we are ready to kick off on 2nd of August. People was calling us to ask when they will start, when they will buy the ticket. So I think that everybody is aware, in the continent at least, is aware of this competition they're waiting for. They're excited to be part of this from the 2nd of August. Is not to take it a singular country, is all together one competition.
3 in 1.
So 3 of them, they are doing well. And the coordination of very well, exchange of information very well. I think that this is we have to learn from here in Africa, to see 3 countries, they put effort together, they put resources together to deliver this competition.
And that's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Olarinde.